What is up, guys? Welcome into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. No streaming today. Just wanted to record a quick 10, 15 minutes on the reaction that was Mat Ishbia's press conference today. All things Mat Ishbia, James Jones, some of the sound bites, some of the biggest hits of the press conference yesterday. Get a second to react to it, as well as take the last 5 minutes of the show to see the response to Stephen A. Smith and what he had to say about Mat Ishbia, basically saying no one listens to him anymore. If you want to follow me on all social media platforms, you can at Ben Garcia Show. No, we stream daily, Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. local time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to catch me at those regular time slots, I'll interact with you, talk about all things Arizona sports. But for those reasons, I decided not to do it on Friday, just keeping things normal, but get you guys out a quick video. So yesterday, Mat Ishbia took to the podium. And one thing that I'll say that kind of annoyed me was it almost felt like the Suns were hiding from the media at least a little bit. Until my guy, Brendan Clean of Locked On Phoenix Suns, was like, yeah, they kind of do this every year where they will send out the media advisory for the press conference super late. And super late they did. Yesterday, the press conference was at 11 a.m. Thursday. They sent us out a media advisory to let us know about the press conference at 10:30 Wednesday night. So it was, Brendan and I are professionals, mostly Brendan at this point, letting us know, hey, this could go on. Clear your calendar just in case. And I'm sure everyone else did that as well. But that was the first thing. But then you show up. Ishbia's on time, sets the stage at 11, starts speaking with the media. And the first thing I liked about Ishbia, and this is why I won't play these clips, is he came out swinging. The season was a disaster, was a failure, all these things. And you liked what you had to hear. You liked that Ishbia went up there and took the bow right in the heart for everyone else. I didn't like the fact that the players weren't available. Would have liked to heard their side of the story, whether it was Budenholzer, whether it was issues in the front office. I would have liked to hear some of those things. But we didn't get that. Instead, we got Ishbia, James Jones, Josh Bartelstein, who I'll be talking minimally about towards the end of the show. But Ishbia came out swinging, said there needs to be a different definition, a different culture. Basically, these are some of the things that he was throwing out there. He says you need to be able to know what a Phoenix Suns player is just by saying, oh man, they play like the Phoenix Suns. And when we lose, you'll be proud of the product we had on the court. And this year, it wasn't really like that. The issue is, since they took a decent amount of time to have this press conference, Budenholzer was already gone. James Jones, Josh Bartelstein, we're not too sure what their jobs are. However, he went up there with kind of half-baked thoughts of what the next Phoenix Suns team would be. And the issue is you probably should have some idea, or at least give us vague expressions of what you think they should be. Meaning, when you talk about, I said this yesterday on Locked On Phoenix Suns, when you talk about, like he had pointed out, the Pittsburgh Steelers, you know exactly what I'm talking about, what kind of player. And I do. Tough, hard-nosed football player. Michigan State Spartans, tough, hard-nosed, gritty, do all the little things, basketball players. That is the Michigan State Spartans. Overlooked. That is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Getting those kind of players in to do those gritty types of things. But the lack of willing to give out characteristics made everything a little bit murky. Instead of just naming teams, give us characteristics on what this team is supposed to do. What I did like about Ishbia, and this shouldn't be a praise of his, because this should just be something you're doing, is he went up there, took the blows, and then continued to say it wasn't acceptable. I didn't like when he went up there and said, but we did a lot of good things too. We made things free and we lowered the prices of concessions. Like, all that stuff is great, but no one cares about that. The casual fan doesn't care about that. I think that's great. It's good you're doing that. There's a thing Sarver never did, but that's not what matters. Stick with the on-court product if you want to be held accountable. And for the most part, he did. But he did have to remind us about some of the other good things he was doing, because I think he felt the temperature of the room continue to get a little warmer. And for that, whatever. But the murkiness and not understanding what this Suns team is going to look like from a characteristic standpoint next year was a little rough, to say the least. And here were some of his comments about Ishbia kind of talking about what the new Suns would look like, and as well as, more so in this clip, the new owner syndrome. Does he have that? How much is he involved? Let's talk about it, and then we'll see how much we believe that.
So the vision starts with me delivering for what the fans want, right? Which is a competitive team that's fun to watch, that competes out there, and has a chance of winning a championship, right? And so that's what I believe. And so I'm not a believer that an owner, I'm going to buy a team and I'm going to buy the team and I'm going to go sit in the box and just watch and just cheer them on, and not like I have to be accountable as well, and just like any owner of any business, right? But I think the delineation when people talk new owners and like people are just silly. Like, is Matt making calls to the GM to make a trade? And what does Ishbia think about this draft pick? Like I think what my front office thinks about it, right? Like, I'm with them, and like, now do I have to have the right front office, the right scouts, the right personnel? Of course, and that's on me. But new owner syndrome, that's just what the media likes to say.
Just so we're clear, I didn't take any of these clips. All of these clips are per PHNX Sports, PHNX Suns, and my guy Gerald Bourguet, who was actually there yesterday. But the new owner syndrome of Mat Ishbia and him potentially being in the weeds just a little bit more, I do believe Ishbia when he says that he didn't draft Ryan Dunn, that he's not watching film, that he's not in the rooms watching practice or being involved or telling coaches what they should run in games. I don't think he is as hands-on as some people think. And I think, to his credit, he should have came out and said, guys, I'm running a mortgage company, and he did say this, I'm running a mortgage company most of the day. I can't be here running the Suns team, which is also another thing that I think people need to put in their heads is like, this guy's already an owner of a different team. And then Ishbia basically came out and said, I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm not in the weeds. But it wasn't until yesterday, and I don't want to make this point seem like my own. It was per my guy Brendan Clean on Locked On Phoenix Suns, where you guys can catch most of the Suns reactionary stuff over there. But basically, it was like, no, man, you are lying a little bit. And Brendan Clean pointed this out yesterday, where he was saying, a couple of years ago, the reporting was you pushed over the trade for Kevin Durant. Now, granted, I would have still traded for Kevin Durant. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. Maybe I would have kept a couple of more picks, not given the entire farm like the Suns did, although I get why they did. I don't necessarily think he had Bradley Beal in the hand, too much of a hand in the Bradley Beal situation. That was a Mark Bartelstein, Josh Bartelstein connection, father to son. But this idea that you haven't done any of it, that's a lie. Because you have. The first thing you did when you came in as the new owner of the Phoenix Suns is you pushed over the trade for Kevin Durant. So you can't speak out of one side of your mouth and then also speak out of the other side as well. So those are the kind of stuff that you're like, I do believe that Ishbia isn't running everything. And I think if you think that, it's just not true. How are you going to do that and run a mortgage company in the same day? It's not possible, especially the fact, whereas mortgage companies where he makes all the money. This guy takes a loss, I'm sure, on the Phoenix Suns every year. Concession stands are cheaper. The Suns games are free. He's taking hits in both those profitabilities, which are things that I do think people need to take credit for or need to give him credit for. But it wasn't just the taking responsibility for the season, taking responsibility for the fact that it was a bad season, and saying that he isn't running the show, although I do think he has his hands in little things. Trades, or not necessarily trades, but Kevin Durant pushing that over the hump. Maybe just urging them in the direction of Bradley Beal. But outside of that, I don't think he went and signed Tyus Jones. I don't think he traded away for Nick Richards. I don't think he traded Yusuf Nurkic away. I don't think any of those things. I do think maybe he's a little involved, but I believe most of his comments were he's probably not super involved. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But here's what triggered a lot of people yesterday. When talking about Coach Bud, here's what Ishbia said.
So I'll say, Coach Bud, that change was made. Didn't need more evaluation. Everything's going to be evaluated, but it's going to start with me being accountable and setting an identity, and then making sure that the identity we set for Phoenix Suns is set from the ownership. The fans are going to love it and be proud of it. The front office is aligned. The coaches are aligned. The players are aligned. And there's going to be players that sometimes we don't take the most talented player because they don't align with what we believe in. And so those are the changes I'm going to be focused on right now, and then they'll all will fall into line. And we are going to be making changes, and there's going to be things that are going to be different.
Ishbia kept going into things are going to change, but we're just not sure what those things are yet, which is a little frustrating because one of the things about the Suns season, and the reason why it frustrates me, and we'll get to the Bud side of it in just a second because I don't want to miss this point. And this is the biggest thing that really frustrated me about the Suns yesterday. They kept on saying they had this new vision of what the Suns were going to be. This was the number one thing that really pissed me off. They went up there and said, we have this new vision of what we want the Suns to be. Pittsburgh Steelers, Michigan State. They didn't use these characteristics, but you use those teams and you say, okay, gritty, do all the little things, hardworking type of players. That's great. And he kept saying changes need to be made. Okay, can we get some real characteristics on what the Suns team is going to look like? And also, if that's the case, what's going to change in the front office? Because Budenholzer is clearly not enough, and we'll get to him in just a second. James Jones had a hand in this. Josh Bartelstein, the athletic pieces are coming out and saying he had a hand in this. If things are going to change, and we're getting reports from Gambo that things are supposed to change, why haven't they changed yet? The one thing about this Suns season that I really enjoyed was the fact that they had clear and utter clarity. This team is not working. This order of operations is not working. So what pisses me off is when you roll out the same thing in a press conference and say, don't worry, roles are going to change. Okay, so why did you bring these other two guys up to the stand yesterday? Why is Josh Bartelstein speaking? Why is James Jones speaking? And also, we'll get to him in just a second, James Jones saying, I'm open to my role changing as well. Bartelstein looking like he was a deer in headlights yesterday speaking. What is the clarity? Why did you call us together to not give us a clear idea of what this Suns team is going to look like, both from a player's perspective and also a bunch of unanswered questions what the front office is going to look like? Dude, you have all of the reasoning you need to fire everyone in the front office and start anew. This Suns season was a complete and utter disaster, and I'm a defender of Ishbia for the most part. But the one thing you had was clarity. The one thing you had was, this is not working, everyone's got to go. Or quickly announce there that positions are changing and we're going to look for a new GM and a new president of basketball operations. But you didn't do that. You went out there, you took blame to your credit, but you didn't give us clear clarity of what it is going to look like for this Suns team in the future. Josh Bartelstein and James Jones went up there, and I'm not 1,000% sure they knew what they were doing yesterday. Because they went up there like, oh, I don't know, James Jones saying my contract's up. Josh Bartelstein's not sure what he's going to be doing. That is the biggest thing yesterday is, where's the clarity? The Suns need to make things clear. Don't just do things just to do things. Just have a press conference, just have a press conference. Tell us exactly what you want this Suns team to look like next year in terms of players. And then you have all the clarity you need to change up the entire front office. Why are guys still in the positions that they're at? What are we doing? What is the next Suns head coach going to look like? These are all questions we still have from yesterday. What is the head coach going to look like? What are James Jones and Josh Bartelstein's roles going to look like? And more than anything, what are the players going to look like? Who do you want to model this after? It felt like yesterday was a lot of apologies and taking credit for blame. To their credit, they did do that. But we don't know what the rest is going to look like. And that's not okay. So we got to get more clear on what the Suns' future is going to look like before we can make any other steps. And that's up to Ishbia, Bartelstein, James Jones to figure that out. And then we talk about the Bud thing from that clip. It's very clear Mat Ishbia had Ishbias with Coach Bud. It's very clear he didn't like Coach Bud at the end of the day. So why didn't you fire him when you had a chance? The one thing Ishbia said yesterday or I guess the second thing Ishbia said yesterday that I really liked is he's like, I'll pivot quickly. If it doesn't work, I'll pivot quickly. Why didn't you pivot quickly off of Ishbia? Or why didn't you pivot quickly off of Mike Budenholzer? Because it's clear that you probably didn't have the greatest relationship with him that we all thought. Frank Vogel took a couple weeks to fire. Monty Williams took a couple weeks to fire. Why didn't Mike Budenholzer have that same trigger? Were you hoping it would work out? Because that's not okay either. And then finally, going to the end of this press conference with James Jones, talking about he's open to changing his role with the Phoenix Suns. Here's what he had to say.
My job is to make sure the how is done and executed flawlessly. And so that comes with me taking some of the initiative, but it's also being smart enough and aware enough to enlist the help of people whose true passion and true incentive is to make sure that this basketball thing runs right. And so we do it together. We'll always do it together. When it comes to basketball, that's me. That's my area of focus. I own that. I stand by that. And my job is to make sure we continue to improve. We change in the right ways. And if that means changing roles, if that means changing responsibilities, from year to year, those things change from moment to moment. But ultimately, whatever is best for the team is what we do.
It all goes back to clarity. James Jones went up there with the best PR training I've ever seen yesterday. They spoke for about 10 minutes. They were pretty quickly ready to get them off the stage. Josh Bartelstein and James Jones talked together. And both guys said a whole lot of nothing. We don't know anything further of the future of those two guys. And if I'm being honest with you, maybe this changes when I come back or when before this video goes up. And maybe that's the case and they change it and they move on from both guys. I'll still keep the video up because this point still stands. If you were a fan and you were sitting in that press conference room yesterday, and I guess technically I was doing both, it didn't feel like either guy was going to be gone. It felt like maybe position changing for those two guys, but ultimately what I will lean towards is it felt like, which is no sourcing, it felt like they were leaning towards getting those guys a new boss, which would be a president of basketball operations, which I'm not against either, but it's clear those two guys didn't know what they were doing up there. It feels like those two guys were told the same time I was when the press conference was. And James Jones said a whole lot of nothing. And Josh Bartelstein said a whole lot of nothing except looking like a deer in headlights yesterday. And so we're not clear about the direction of those two guys. And that is an issue. It all comes back to clarity. I appreciated Ishbia taking the proverbial arrow to the heart, but we got to be more clear. And just to be completely clear, I do think Ishbia is going to get it figured out. Listen, I'll keep on taking the hits for this. The guy's smart. He spends money. He gets players what he needs, practice facilities, all these sorts of things. He's going to get it figured out. I know it sucks right now, and I know he was maybe a little too eager, and he's got to figure out patience. But I do believe Ishbia, at the end of the day, is going to get it figured out. He's smart. He's obviously built a business, a massive business from the ground up. He's got loads of money. He's willing to spend. He said yesterday, profitability, not a thing for him. Not worried about it with the Suns, which is something you should really care about, which is why I tell people, be careful what you wish for. This guy Ishbia is smart. You don't want him gone. He was just a little impatient, and just so we're clear, you, for the most part, wanted Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal and Tyus Jones. I did as well. I'm not going to two-face it and tell them over here that, well, this was a terrible thing when I thought it was amazing too. We all got fooled. And then there was this morning. This is the final part. Stephen A. Smith coming out and responding to Mat Ishbia's comments that I think a lot of people are starting to say, these national reporters and talking heads are starting to really get lazy. Calling Ishbia, and I mentioned this the other day, the worst owner in the NBA, and Ishbia said what a lot of us were already thinking. And that was this. I don't think a lot of people are taking Stephen A. Smith seriously. I don't take him seriously. And he'll probably issue me an apology for trying to compare me to the likes of Donald Sterling. And here's what Stephen A. Smith who probably didn't have a segment this morning, was thrilled Ishbia responded, so we could take 15 minutes to talk about this.
I was talking about the Donald Sterling that would be sitting courtside, heckling his own damn players and never winning anything and didn't give a damn. That's the Donald Sterling that I was talking about in terms of how ineffectual he was, or ineffective he was as an owner on a basketball court. I certainly did not mean to do that. So Mat Ishbia is absolutely right. And for that, I apologize. I'm a man. If I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong. Unfortunately for you, sir, that's the only thing I'm wrong about.
I cannot believe the ESPN producers, the ESPN writers, whatever it is, gave that guy 15 minutes to talk about that. And I'm not going to dedicate another 15 minutes to it. Give me 3 minutes. I will continue to say, if you want to go after Ishbia for his ways of trying to win a title, totally fair. If you're going after him for not caring or being cheap or whatever it is, you are the problem. I've spoke to people close to Ishbia before, and from the times that I've talked to Ishbia before, which is for some reason on more than one occasion, this guy wants to win. I'm not straight up asking him because I don't want to make it seem like I'm a reporter. I'm not. No sourcing. But everything I hear is, oh, this guy wants to win a title. Doesn't care the money that it's going to take. Doesn't care about the profitability. He wants to win a title. So comparing him to, this is not what Stephen A. Smith was doing. He was trying to get a rise out of everyone the other day by comparing him to this nonsense, and it was never the case. And then he tried to say it was the Donald Sterling in terms of basketball. Right. Okay, cool, man. Cool. Ishbia was right to call it Stephen A. Smith and say no one really listens to him. I don't really listen to him. I don't really take him seriously. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And he was right to give it a 30-second response and move on. But Stephen A. Smith trying to say that's all he's wrong about, yeah, it's been a colossal failure over the past couple years. It wasn't because Mat Ishbia didn't try or shell out the money. He was a little impatient. Not a little impatient, a lot of impatient. Probably should have pulled the cord on this earlier than he did. But it's where I'll wrap it up like this. Ishbia is a good owner. He's got to be more patient. He's got to selectively put his money where he feels like he should put it. But this, going after him for not wanting to win or being Donald Sterling, sitting on the sidelines screaming at his players, it's just nonsense. And Stephen A. Smith knows it is. This team's going to get it figured out. We just need more clarity. And that's my reaction to it. I'll see you guys next week, Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. local time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show. And I will talk to you guys next week.